evening, everyone. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and get started because we are sticklers for time and we want to honor that, we only have a limited resource in the form of time and make sure that we have the opportunity to do all that that we've designated for this evening. And let me quickly introduce us. My name is Avril, and I am on the ministerial team here. I lead meditations on the Sunday services, maybe once or twice a month. And to my left is...
I'm Sarah Butler. I'm a member here at Unity, and I practice with our Saturday morning yoga meditators.
And to my right is working on her technical.
Yes,
there you
yes,
go.
There I am. My name is Erica Klein, and I am also one of the meditators on Saturday mornings and one of the co-leaders.
So, and at the end, we'll make sure you have the follow-up information. But yes, we do meditate on Saturday mornings at 7 a.m. And it's so interesting because people think of that as being an early time, but classically, meditation is done early in the morning. If you go to ashrams or monasteries, they get up much earlier than 7 a.m. to do that because the idea is kind of catching the world before it gets busy. Where I was taught, we actually do it at 6 a.m., but I chose 7 a.m. because there was a time difference, but also I knew nobody would come if it was at 6 a.m. And when I helped found the group, the idea is 7 a.m. would still give people the rest of their Saturday free so that they wouldn't say, well, I can't do it because I've got XYZ going on. You still have the rest of the day to do whatever you were going to do without it being so burdensome. So I stick by that time very committedly. But classically, when we do our meditation, we if we're together or it's our more regular practitioners, we have a series of opening mantras that we begin with that are from the Himalayan tradition. And when we have a smaller group or maybe just people who are newer to the practice, we intone the mantra Om 3 times, which we'll do this evening before practicing. And at the end of the practice, during the discussion, we'll go in more depth into what that actual sound, that intonation, that mantra is, because it's kind of like a pop culture term now. We hear Om everywhere, and I wonder that many of us may just not understand the sacred nature of that sound, that syllable. So I invite you at this time to sit tall and well, and to have your feet grounded on the floor. You can bring your hands into Anjali Mudra like Erica's doing, or you can just let them rest on your lap wherever you're comfortable. And we will intone the mantra Om 3 times.
All right. So let's go ahead. We're going to go ahead and get our body prepared for when we're seated later. And we're going to stand up and do some very simple stretching. Very, very. So go ahead and put your hands on your hips, and we're going to do some hip circles. But remember, we're not just going to throw them around in the circle. We're going to be very deliberate about our moves. Notice the whole way around. All right, we're reverse directions. See if you notice anything different about going this way. All right. Then we're going to do some side bends. You can either leave your hands at your side and bend, or if you need a deeper stretch, you can reach. But kind of take the time to start connecting with your breath, with your movements. Inhale, exhale. All right, and then we're going to do some torso twists, or also known as goalposts. So you want to keep your hips straight, but then just stretch that torso. And then exhale out, and inhale back to center. Try to match it to your breath. Keep your knees soft. All right, now we're going to do some, call them the doorknobs, but I want to get you to do some nice exaggerated ones. Make sure you get it all the way from the shoulders down to the fingertips. Work those kinks from the day out. And you can feel them as they work themselves out. All right. So then we're going to do some neck exercises. So we're going to do, shoulder rolls. Sorry, thank you. Yes, so some nice, big, exaggerated shoulder rolls back. I always get myself psyched up. I'm going to miss something, and lo and behold, manifestation. Every time. All right, then go ahead and reverse directions. Now we'll move to the neck exercises. So we're going to move our jaws front and back, kind of like a chicken. So keep your body straight. Just move your head front and back. Or body still, rather. Then we'll do some exaggerating. Yes. Again, try to connect your movements with your breath, your inhale and your exhale. Inhaling up and exhaling down. And then some exaggerated nose. And then some lateral. So you're going to touch your ears to your shoulder. you need to, you can add some extra the weight of your arm. Remember to breathe. All right, and then we're going to do an overhead stretch. So clasp your hands together, press them up away, soft knees. Wiggle a little bit. And exhale. And then, just to work your brain a bit, cross your non-dominant thumb over. It's going to feel weird at first. And then go ahead and bring it back over. All right, how you feeling? A little looser than you came in? Awesome. All right, well, go ahead and make yourself comfortable, and Miss Sarah is going to lead us through the meditation.
I'm the lucky one. I get to lead the meditation. So, in your chairs, sit attentively. Restful attentiveness. Thank you. Feet on the floor, grounded. Sitting up tall and well. Close your eyes if you haven't done so already. The bell will bring us to the threshold of meditation. Take a moment to observe the sounds in the room, feeling of the air on your skin. Be present in this moment. Recognize that you can move the body, but we're choosing not to at this time. Redirect that attention inward. Bring your awareness to the body. We are interior researchers, fixated at the top of our head. Explore the top of the head as if it's the first time. Imagine looking down on the top of the head or feeling as if with your hands. Feel your energy or vibration there at the top of the head. However you feel it is exactly perfect for you in this moment. Now move your awareness from the crown of your head down over your forehead and the back of the head simultaneously. It might be different in this space. It might be the same. Continue bringing your awareness now to your eyebrows, to your eye sockets. Descending into your nasal cavities, your nose, cheekbones, ears. Mouth. Explore the lips, the inside of the mouth, the teeth, the tongue. The jawline. The throat inside. The neck muscles. Continuing the awareness descent down to your shoulder blades. Your your shoulders, upper arms. Feel the elbows, the forearms, wrists, hands, fingers, tips of the fingers. Bring all of your awareness to the subtle tips of the fingers. At your own pace, we will ascend back to the shoulders. Please, at your own pace, take your time. Move from the fingertips back to the shoulders. Once you reach the shoulders, continue. Explore the shoulder blades in the back. There's lots to cover there at the back, so really take your time. Tissue, bone. Bring your awareness through to the chest. Explore the organs inside, as well as the superficial skin and curves of your body in the chest area. Descend now into the abdomen. The belly. Continuing to the hips. The pelvic bowl holding you in your chair. Moving to the thighs, hamstrings. Exploring your upper legs. Front and back of the knee. Lower legs. Moving to the ankles. The feet. Toes. Bring all of your awareness to the tips of your toes. Now, once again, on your own, from the tips of the toes, retrace back to the hips. Take your time savoring this exploration of your body. And only once you've reached the hips, continue our ascent back the way we came, through the abdomen, chest, and back. It's okay if your pace is different, but if you're at your back, feel free to once again explore the shoulders down to the fingertips. And finally, when you're at the fingertips, make the final ascent from the fingertips all the way back to the crown of the head. Once you've arrived at the crown of the head, take a step out, zoom out, and feel the whole body, every cell, every fiber, the whole body unified in stillness. Maintaining the body in this stillness, we turn a little more inward and we bring our awareness to the breathing. What's the quality of breath for you in this moment? Bring your awareness to the breathing at the space above the navel and below the breastbone. The next time you exhale, bring that space back toward the spine, emptying the lungs with your muscles. And then to inhale, release those muscles to let the breath flow back into the lungs. Exhale, bringing the upper abdominal in. Let go to inhale, surrender. Exhale, bringing those abdominal muscles in. Release to let go. We will continue this diaphragmatic breath through the remainder of the practice. But in this moment, focus on training the breath. See if you can make the exhale longer. Keeping the inhale extemporaneous, spontaneous. Focus on making this breath seamless. One breath dissolve into the next. See if you can slow the breathing. Keeping the breath silent and smooth across the transition. Continuing to exhale, bringing the upper belly in. And inhaling by letting go. the mind will distract you. That's okay. Just recenter your focus back on this diaphragmatic breathing. Continuing this diaphragmatic practice, we'll watch the breath along the energetic spine. So on your next exhale, imagine the breathing as if it's moving from the top of the head to the base of the spine. And then on the inhale, imagine the breathing from the base of the spine to the top of the head. Exhaling down, bringing the upper belly in. Releasing on the inhale and watching the breath move back to the crown of the head. Exhaling down. Inhaling up. Continue this spinal breathing for another few moments. There are many ways you can experience this breath, and all are very correct. You can't do this wrong. It might be that you're visualizing a milky white stream. You're feeling the vibration of your breathing. You're seeing a representation of the inner light, or nothing. All are welcome. Again, your mind will distract you. Physical sensations, sounds, emotions, planning mind. All we greet with acceptance. We acknowledge and we let them go. Don't get stuck to the story. Just continue your spinal breathing with no judgment, no admonishment. We'll turn even more inward as we now bring the awareness of the breathing at the space between the nostrils. Maybe you can feel the breath moving in and out of your nose. On your next exhale, exhale from your left nostril, as if you're exhaling from the left nostril exclusively. It's the only nostril you have. Your next exhale will be from the right nostril. Breathe from your right nostril as if it's breathing independently for a few breaths. Once again, on the next exhale, exhale from your left nostril. Breathing independently from the left nostril. Your next exhale, breathe from the right nostril independently. One final time, we'll breathe again on our next exhale from the left nostril. And transition that exhale now to the right nostril. Bring your awareness once again to the center, the space between the nostrils. Take a moment to assess if the breathing is balanced between the left and right hemispheres. If there's a blockage, feel free to focus on that restriction to see if we can balance between left and right evenly. When your breathing is even, we're here at the space between the nostrils with the breathing as one stream. The space between their nostrils where there is no left or right, no up or down. Very subtle space. Here we're focusing on the feeling of the breath. Let all of your thoughts come to the forefront at this time. Watch them come and watch them go. Focusing on the breathing at the space between the nostrils. This may be where you continue to stay through the remainder of the practice, in this space, with this anchor of the breath. You may also choose your space of meditation as the heart space, the chest, or in between your eyebrows. If it's your practice, feel free to introduce a mantra at this time as your anchor. But if you're new to this tradition, feel free to stay at the space between the nostrils, observing the breathing. We continue to refocus here, no matter how many times we get distracted. We begin again. Continue your practice in your space with this anchor as we go into the silence. Remain in your space. Observe the silence at the center of consciousness. Reflect on the relative quietness of the mind at this time. It is allowed by the smoothness of the breathing, which was allowed by the stillness of the body. And when you're ready, gently open the eyes. Welcome back. Avril's going to begin our talk.
Usually there's a little bit of transitory or transitional, ooh.
That was me. I think. Sorry.
Transitional time between the end of whatever the meditation is on the Wednesday and the talk. So if you need a moment or two to use the facilities, or if those that you at home are not going to stay on for the talk, if you'd like to move a little bit closer for the talk, you can do so. But let's just give it a minute before we go into that. And our friends in the AV, if you could go to the first slide at this time, that would be quite lovely. Thank you. We'll get started in maybe one more minute. You can go ahead and put that slide back on. All right, well, I guess no one in here needs to handle any bodily functions or stretch, which is nice. I'm glad you're all still here. And, you know, if you would like a copy of this, you can just send us like a message, Jacinta. You don't have to take a picture. We can just like send you the PowerPoint. Yeah. It'll be much nicer quality. You're welcome. Absolutely. And anybody else, just like if you're listening online, I mentioned the week that I taught, which was the first week, that we have a recording of this meditation. And if it's something that speaks to you and you'd like to practice it with more regularity, you can just give me an email. And it's avriljameshurt@gmail.com, avriljameshurt@gmail.com, and I can send you a Dropbox link of the recording as well. So in the previous classes, we have referenced this chart, which was created by a man named Swami Rama and then given to me through my teacher, Swami Janeshvara Bharati. And this chart represents a road map to what we're going to describe as maybe being called the center of consciousness. And it's simply called the circle chart, and it's a representation of the center of consciousness, which is that question mark where the arrow is pointing, the center of consciousness, whatever you want to call that, and we'll talk about that more in depth at a little bit further in our discussion, projecting outward and taking on what we will call a mental field and taking on a body and becoming everyone and everything that we see. And in the yoga philosophy, there is no separation between the individual and what we call the absolute, or relative consciousness and absolute consciousness. If you can go to the next slide, please. This same chart, it can also be represented with the letters of the mantra Om that we intoned at the beginning of our discussion. And Om represents in its sound these particular states of consciousness receding all the way back to what we would call the center. Sometimes it's written as two letters, O-M, but it doesn't matter whether it's written as two or as A-U-M. There's three sounds and silence. If you say O, there's still an O-U sound, or if you pronounce it ow, there's still an A-U sound. So there's an understanding that there's these three parts. Well, in my talk, I talked about the body as it relates to meditation. And my talk, which was the first of our 4 talks, hence the 4 domains on that chart, was about connecting with the body and preparing the body, which is represented by the primal sound ah, the sound of childbirth, the first sound that you make when you're born as an ah, screaming sound. And in yoga meditation, the idea is that as we prepare the body, it makes it a better vehicle for going inside. So one of the first things that we did was to do some gentle stretching as led by Erica, because if the body is tight and stiff, then our attention is on our discomfort and not on the silence that we're aiming to explore at the ultimate level of the practice. I also discussed in my talk on the first week about taking better care of our bodies. You know, people say, I can't meditate. Well, maybe it's looking at our diet. Maybe it's looking at our sleeping. Maybe it's needing to incorporate more movement. The postural aspect of yoga, and we'll talk about that word a little bit further on, is often really, really emphasized in this country. But classically, those postures are preparatory for meditation. They're done in conjunction. There's an assumption that meditation is the apical practice. Many times you'll take a yoga class, they end at the Shavasana. Well, that's where you actually should sit up and meditate, because what you did was prepare the body so the hips and the back aren't in pain, so the energy channels are open and flowing. And all of that is what we would call the waking state of consciousness, the physical plane represented by Ah in the mantra Om.
That was beautiful, Avril. Yes, can you hear me okay? Yes? Okay, so I'm going to be discussing the U and the M.
There you go.
All right, there we go. All right, so I'll be discussing the U and the M portion, and I kind of wanted to give you a visual. This is the visual that I used in order to be able to wrap my mind around the concept. I'm a visual learner, so I kind of imagined the A, the U, the M as kind of the planet Earth as the A, right, the physical plane like she was talking about, and then the U is kind of like the atmosphere beyond it, but it's encapsulating, you know, the planet as well. So it's an awareness of all that space. And then the M would be kind of the cosmos, you know, that encompass all of, you know, the planet and the atmosphere. But to kind of further dive into it, and I'm going to kind of use that visual throughout this, but the U is the dreaming state. And so that's not to say that dreaming is the only way to access it. That's just the state of consciousness that you're in while you're dreaming. And in this state of mind, that's kind of where all of your, you know, all the things that you can't do out in the world, you know, the things that you're still working through in your mind, your wants, your desires, your fears, and all of that, they're working in that state of consciousness. And so as we, as you heard during the meditation, it says allow your thoughts to come forward, and then notice them, and then let them go as easily as they came. And in that practice, you're learning discernment, so you know where what's not important right now. When you're one-pointed and you're focused, then okay, we're doing the meditation now. Just like sometimes when we get distracted during the meditation, we're like, oh, come back to the breath. And so in the process of this, we're also noticing our behaviors and our thought patterns. And once we get, have an awareness of that level, then we can start, changing our behaviors to go more in line with the truth. So a lot of that is just, learning how to train your brain to set aside. And then eventually all of these things that come up into your field while you're trying to meditate, you may want to really latch onto them because that's very interesting to you, but you learn how to let it go. And then eventually that idea or thought or whatever that used to have so much power over you now has lost its power.
I love how you said interesting to you, because that's a really good word, Erica. Like,
Interesting.
So you're meditating, and it doesn't mean that you're enjoying it, but it is interesting. Sometimes the stuff that comes up is ugly, but it is seductive. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. And that is signified when you go through the ooh part of the aum, okay? And that, encapsulates both your dreaming state as well as the unconscious level of your mental processing. Like I said, how you're working through things. But it also, if you think about it, when you went from the A, the planet, to the U, the atmosphere, it's also, it's not just my atmosphere, it's a shared consciousness, right? So that's kind of the third level of that. And on that note, we'll just go ahead and progress from the planet through the atmosphere out into space, which would be the M. And like I said, remember, it's not moving from one state of consciousness to another. It's adding on to. You're becoming more and more aware as you move out or in, depending on the way you look at it. But the M is where all the latent impressions are. So these are samskaras, which are the root of your behavior. And some of these can go back lifetimes. It's your karma is back, all in the cosmos, right? And so that's when you can really start getting to the root of your behaviors and your patterns once you graduate to this. And you can kind of solve your karmic issues before the next life, right?
That word, samskara, I always remember it. It means etching, but I think of it like a scar. Like it's something that's so, like the word samskara sounds like a scar. I wonder if there's an etymological connection, because we do speak in a language that comes from Sanskrit. It's an Indo-European language. But those are the things, like she said, that you can't say this thing happened and that's why I have this impression. We have cultural, karma that we share. We have planetary karma. And in this tradition, because we believe in reincarnation, these are things that you've maybe done over and over and over again. And they're so deep that to get to them in meditation really requires a deep stillness of all the other layers of yourself.
Yes. So, and that is why it's called the deep sleep state of consciousness. It's not where you necessarily, like I said, have to be in deep sleep. It's just the level of consciousness that you're in when you're in deep sleep. You can access it at any time once you master all of these things. And so then kind of going with my visual as we go from the planet out into the atmosphere and out into the space, then we come to the silence known as the center of consciousness.
We call that turiya, or the fourth state. Like, I don't know if you ever do postural yoga and you hear chaturanga. Chatur means four, turiya means the fourth state. They're like the same word together. And I would say that the fourth state would be something like the Big Bang or like a supermassive black hole where everything is coming out from, if we want to use the space metaphor. And the fourth state is the silence. So when you are chanting the mantra Om, you're honoring this path, moving through the physical waking state to the subtle dream state, to the causal deep sleep state, to the to the stateless state, to the precursor of state, to the precursor of mind, which is the center of consciousness, which is represented by a question mark in that particular chart because it's nameless. I love the idea in the Vedantic philosophy, which is a precursor to what we would call Hinduism, for lack of a better word, this idea of neti neti. It means not this, not this. If you describe God, you say, well, God is good. Well, that means that there has to be a polarity, that's something opposite to God, right? Like something that's the bad. And in this philosophy, the primal level, there is no up, down, left, right, just like we say in meditation where there is no left, no right, no up, no down. There's a place where everything is emanating from, pleasant, unpleasant, male, female, good, bad. All those discernments are left aside, and we're calling it silence, but it's much more than that because silence is just an absence of sound. This is an absence of all describable attributes. And if you could go to the next slide. So in the 5 basic unity principles, and the word yoga means unity. That's not a rough translation. It's a literal translation, which I think is so beautiful that our karma brought us to unity where we're practicing yoga meditation. There are these 5 principles which basically describe what we're calling the question mark in yoga. So there's one power, one source, and in that previous slide, there was one question mark, and everything emanated from that question mark. And in unity, they might call it God, but for some people, that can be a sensitive word because it can have maybe an anthropomorphic connotation, like it's like a man. Like when I think of the word God, I think particularly of a white man. You know, long flowing robes, kind of Michelangelo, Sistine Chapel-like. So I use the word divine. And when I was a prayer chaplain here, one of the things that we talked about was ask the person, what do you call the highest consciousness? So I love that symbology of the question mark because it leaves it infinite ways to describe it because it really is indescribable. So then in that chart, it was the question mark emanating out and absorbing and taking on a mental field. Remember, that was the next step. It was a deep, latent impressions in the mind, and it worked outward to being a conscious mind. So it's almost like the center of consciousness is putting on clothing and enveloping itself. We happen to call those things koshas in yoga language, means lampshades or sheaths. It says, God and I are one, you and God are one, you and I are one. That doesn't mean we're connected. It literally means we are one. Connected would mean that there's still space, like I'm connecting my arm with Erica's. The idea is that circle there's like asters projecting out of it, and it is at the same time simultaneously seeing through everyone's eyes, experiencing everyone's joys, pains, sorrows, losses, gains. When we stay in just those 2 things, then why would I ever want to hurt Sarah? She and I aren't connected. We're literally the same. So that brings in the idea of like good behavior and morality. It's not about some reward later on when you get your harp and your mansion. It's about now because we are the same. A lot of times we'll chant in unity, there is no you, there is no me, there is only God that I can see. Well, that is so much more profound, I think, than sometimes we remember. I create my reality through my thoughts, beliefs, feelings, and faith. Well, that's that next level, that mental processing. If the divine puts on clothing, becomes us, our minds are creating the reality that we're seeing. If you are familiar with Course in Miracles, it's very much driven on that third principle. Through number 4, as we sat tonight, we did meditation to remember that we are not these bodies, but that we've taken them on and that we're playing the role of being these individuals. But what we really are is that indescribable question mark. And the 5th principle is, boots on the ground, staying in that, acting from that. That comes into the morality of it. Like I said, why would I want to hurt anyone? Why would I want to treat the planet badly? Why would I want to cause violence or conflict when it's only myself that I'm hurting? You can almost say it's like very selfishly driven altruism. So I thought that it would be really relevant to connect this to the practical teachings of unity. These are ancient wisdoms that are just, we're just recirculating them in different language, just like wearing different clothing, just like the center of consciousness does. This is the language for this time.
I'm really curious. We've been talking a long time, but you guys see and hear about these principles often in our Sunday services, and it's something we practice. I'm wondering if you guys have any commentary or questions on what we've shared so far.
We want to run the mic.
Yes.
I'll give you my microphone.
Thank you, Sarah. So what a great explanation. It's also clear. So thank you, all of you, for a great job. So about the question mark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think I've heard Michael Beckwith say several times, if you know it, you cannot name it. If you name it, you do not know it. So for me, it's not really a logical construct, but it's an experiential thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to throw it back to you in a second. How do you feel? How does it experience when you're reach the unmanifest? There's a word for it. How does it feel? So for me, as I follow my breath, let my awareness go in my breath, it goes away, right? And then after a while, then it's just, it feels pure awareness. I'm just awoke. I'm just awake. I'm not saying my mantra. I'm not following the breath. Oops, here comes a thought. Take me off of it. So, it doesn't last long unless I go away on a meditation retreat, then it lasts long. But if, day in, day out, excuse me, it doesn't last long, but it feels good. So that's my thoughts about the question mark, and I'm wondering for you or anybody else, how does it feel as you experience that question mark?
I feel like you couldn't have said it much better. Mm-hmm. First of all, I wanted to pause with what you said with it's not something you can, it's completely experiential. And that's a synonym would be mysticism, which is direct experience, which I also feel like is synonymous with yoga. The whole purpose of this is direct experience. Because it has infinite attributes, it's beyond describable. What was the word that you used I liked for a moment? Oh gosh.
I don't know, I said a bunch of words.
No, it wasn't ineffable, but it was very similar to that. What was it? You remember? Oh gosh, I wish unmanifest. There you go. Okay. So that was it. That was the word. Yeah. And there's never going to be a perfect word because this is a state beyond words, because words are in the realm of the mind. And this is the precursor to mind, if you want to get very, very heady. And since there are infinite ways for it to express, there's infinite ways to get back to it. It was never gone. It's just remembering, like the Buddhists call Maya, veil, the illusion. Yoga meditation uses that term as well. So I think what you said is maybe how you're experiencing it. If I had to choose words, my experience is very similar. There's just this place where I'm just, for lack of a better word, being. Does that make sense? But I've also experienced it when I was being ordained in seminary. It was a collective consciousness experience. I have gotten to that place in ecstatic dance before as well. But for me, this works very consistently, is accessible. You mentioned going away to a retreat. That's kind of like the collective consciousness, like when I was getting ordained in seminary. And that's why people become monks, so that they can do this all day long and not get caught up with all the other stuff, you know, the idea of letting go all of those attachments. So as lay people, that's why it's really important to have a regular and disciplined and consistent and scheduled practice of something, whether it's this or ecstatic dance or Sufi whirling or affirmative prayer or selfless service, but something that you're doing regularly, because it's so easy to forget that you are the question mark. You can forget it in a second. It's just about getting back to that, getting back to that. Was that helpful?
Yes.
Okay.
I will experience that question mark someday. I'm sure of it.
Maybe you have.
So thank you for asking, but that's what I endeavor for.
I think that's the highest endeavor. Any other comments, thoughts, questions? Did you enjoy yourselves? That's good. Well, what's next, Miss Sarah?
Well, after, we've had our meditation, right? We've learned and reviewed what we covered over these past now 4 weeks, with the pulling it all together with the aum, as Richard might say it. And then relating what it is that we've been practicing all of this time back to the 5 basic principles of unity. We wanted to make sure that we reinforce the fact that we're not practicing anything different. Many paths, one God, right? Or many paths, one question mark. So we wanted to make sure we tied that connection strongly here, and that you can see by practicing this tradition, or even the tradition that you practice on your own, if it's not this, that we can relate it back to these 5 principles. So I guess in closing, what we really wanted to say is we're glad that you're here, and if you're interested in practicing more with us, we encourage you to join us on Saturdays at we're still on Zoom at this point, and it's at 7 a.m.
But you can do it in your jammies on Zoom. That's what's
Yes.
so cool.
Rain or shine. You don't have to go out in the rain like it was last weekend. And you can find that link on Unity North's calendar, of course, on Saturdays at 7. So if you click there, you'll be able to find it and get to us.
And you could like literally go on at 6:59 and 59 seconds, like just roll out and we're right there.
That's right. And actually, we practice almost exactly how we've practiced today. There's one other component to our body preparation, which is a supine laying down meditation for a few moments to further relax the body before we go into the body scan.
Absolutely, yeah, because the body is a big thing. It really can get in the way. You know, if you felt, I had this little itch tonight, and I was just like, I had to really be like, there's nothing crawling on your face, there's nothing crawling on your, And so we want to make sure you don't have that experience.
Right. So please do join us. And the last point I'll make is on the next slide. Oh, it's not a slide. It's a text to give. This is my spiritual home, and I know it's
Mine
the
too.
spiritual home of many. So if you found value in this talk, feel free to text to give using the code that's on the screen now. Whether you're here in person or you're at home and watching the recording, it'll always work. But also, if you're here in person, there are baskets in the back that you can leave your love offering with us at the end. And I think on behalf of Erica and Avril and myself, I've really enjoyed this experience, and it's been a blast. Thanks to all the practitioners in our group that have joined us, and hopefully we'll find new practitioners that will join us on Saturdays. But thank you so much for coming, and
Yes.
thank you for your practice.
Namaste.